type of factorization, quadratic trinomials. So our highest common factor, grouping, difference of two squares, we've completed those. And now we're on to the most common type of factorization we see on the Leaving Cert ordinary level paper, which is factorizing quadratic expressions. Now, in this case here, we're going to get you to come over as far as page number 34 in your notes. You're going to see your quadratic trinomials there. And we're going to start off with exercise 4.4. Here, we're going to be doing every second question, just so you know. So you'll see B, D, then F, H, and J, okay? But they're labelled on the board for you. Now, we're asked to factorise each of the following. Now, I have a very particular technique that I use here. It's actually the technique my maths teacher would have taught me years ago. It's quick, it's easy, but I always say to students, you've been in school for, well, secondary school more than likely for 5 years at this point, maybe 4, depending on what year you're in. So whatever way you like to factorise quadratic trinomials, please use the way you like and that you're comfortable with. This is my technique, this is my method, but if you have a different method that you use and it works for you, always use that, because again, you've been doing this for years upon years upon years. So we're going to start off first of all with quadratic trinomials, and again, you're going to actually find little points here that you may not have known, particularly with the signs. So my first one here is B. We're asked to factorise this quadratic trinomial. So just notice that all the signs are positive. You have a plus and you have a plus. You'll notice in your notes, type 1, positive and positive. Come down as far as the example B. Now in this case here, we're asked to factorise. What do I always tell students to do? Look at your first term. It's x squared. What you want to do here is you want to find the factor pairs of x squared. The factor pairs of x squared are x and x. Now, what that means is these will multiply together to give us x squared. X times x is x squared. Remember, when you multiply the same variables, you add their powers. Come down the end to the last term, which is 4. In this case here, we say to ourselves, what are the factor pairs of 4? 1 and 4, or 2 and 2? 2 times 2 gives me 4, and 1 times 4 gives me 4. Now, in an exam, if this was the question, just to point out, you would have low partial credits as far as there. What you are after doing is finding the factors of them terms. That's step 1 done. Step number 2, you look at the sign in front of the constant down the end. The constant, remember, is the number down the end. It's a plus, it's positive. Now, what does positive mean to me? Positive means to me when I open my brackets down here, that inside each bracket, there's going to be the same signs. Now, how do I decide on what sign that is? Now, when I say same signs, I mean a plus and a plus, or a minus and a minus. Well, I look over here, in front of that x, or 5x in this case here, and whatever the sign is there, that's the sign that's in both of these brackets. In a minute, we'll see where it's a minus there. Now, even if you're using that crisscross method or the box method, this can always be utilised, and it will always ensure that you get your signs correct. So here, let's pop down. We have x and x here, so x will be placed here and x will be placed here. And then we have a decision to make between 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Now what we're trying to get to is this plus 5 in the middle. We have 2 pluses, so we're going to go with 1 and 4. Plus 1 plus 4 will give me plus 5. I'll pop 1 here and 4 here. Could have been done the other way around. And that there is my answer. Now oftentimes with these questions, you may not know if you're correct straight away, so you need to check the answer. Some students will multiply it all out. I'm going to say that's probably a little bit long-winded. So here we're going to do a very quick and easy check. Learn how to do this check and ensure you always get your answer right. So here the second term in the first bracket times the first term of the second bracket. 1 times x is 1x. First term in the first bracket times the second term of the second bracket. X times 4 is going to leave me with 4x. Now in this case here, what we're actually trying to achieve is we're trying to calculate that term in the middle. 1x times 4x gives me 5x, or plus I should say, and notice 5x is that number in the middle. That's always a quick and easy way to check how to get that number in the middle. Now that's my first example done, that's B. Coming on as far as D across the page, over on page 35 of your notes. On page 35 of your notes, you're going to see type number 2, and you're going to notice that it says negative and positive. Now again, what this means here is that the first sign is a negative, second sign is positive. I didn't kind of mention that too much over there. Now in this case, same idea, we're asked to factorize. So what do we do? Step 1, find my factor pairs of my first term and my last term. Here, x times x will give me x squared. And down here, 1 times 15, or we could have 3 times 5 will give me 15. I've already achieved low partial credits, so I'm walking out knowing I actually have marks in that question. Step number 2, decide on the signs. Look at the sign in front of that coefficient down the end, and if it's a plus, just like here, what that tells me is that when I open my brackets, there's going to be the same signs in both brackets. So let's open our brackets and let's decide on those signs. Well, they're the same signs, so where do we look? We look at the sign in front of that 8x. Whatever the sign is there will be in both brackets. So minus and minus. So no matter what technique you're using, whether crisscross box or this method, which is actually a very old-fashioned method, you now will be always able to get them signs correct. Here, we've only one option, so step 3, x and x here. And now we need to decide between 1 and 15 or 3 and 5. So when we look here, I'm thinking 3 and 5, but I'm obviously going to do a little bit of a check. I'll place 3 in here, 5 here, it doesn't matter because the signs are both the same. And I'm going to check if that is the correct answer. I'm thinking minus 3 minus 5 gives me minus 8. That's why I'm choosing those two. But I'm going to also check down the end if my answer is correct. Remember, this is the answer here for my full marks. But I'm just going to check I got it right. It's nice to walk out of your exam being confident that, I know I got that answer correct. And this comes up in functions a little bit later on, finding roots. So here, minus 3 times x will give me minus 3x. X times minus 5 gives me minus 5x. Minus 3x minus 5x gives me minus 8x. And that there is that term in the middle calculated. So I know I've got that correct. Going to move on a little bit further. We're going to jump over as far as page number 36. And on page number 36, you're going to see type 3. When I say type 3, I mean positive and negative, the other way around. So for type number 3, we're looking at a positive and negative. And we're going to jump as far as f. Now, what does this mean? The first sign is positive, the second is negative. Our negative signs we're looking at now are negative signs in front of them coefficients. Let's start off the same technique. We look at our factor pairs of our first term and our last term. Writing this down just ensures that you get marks. Guys, if you're able to get marks on every single question, you're going good. Here, x times x is x squared. And here, 1 times 6 is 6, or we could have 2 times 3. I like to write down all my options here. I look at the sign in front of that constant down the end, it's a minus. Now, previously, we had always seen a plus. Just to jump back here to this, there had always been a positive sign in front of that coefficient, constant down the end. However, now we're looking where there is a negative sign. When there's a negative sign, it means the opposite. It means that when I open my bracket, there's going to be different signs inside either bracket. So here I'm going to open my brackets here. And what I know is there'll be a plus in one and a minus in the other. Now, some people, I'm obviously using a whiteboard here, some people will choose to not place them in until after. I usually place them in, and if I need to change them around, I'll just rewrite it. I won't put a big scribble through it or rub it out. I'll just bracket it off and I'll rewrite it in an exam. Here, it's obviously very easy to wipe, hence why I'm just putting them in very quickly. Now, in this case here, x and x are my only two options for the first term in both brackets. So no options there. Now we have a plus and a minus. We have 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and we want to get to plus. Remember, if there's no number there, 1x. So I'm looking here and I'm thinking, well, if I had minus 2 plus 3, that would give me 1. So let's give that a go. So with the positive, I'm going to place the 3 with the plus, and with the minus, I'll place the 2. Now, obviously, this is a little bit more difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check my answer to see if this is correct. So how do we go about checking? To check my answer, always finding this term in here, I'm going to say 3 times x is 3x. I'm going to say minus 2 times x is minus 2x. 3 minus 2 is going to give me 1x. And that is that digit or number term, I should say. Not digit or number, term at the center. Again, that's just a quick way to calculate the term in the middle. You can multiply them out fully if you want. Next, we're moving on to h, and h is over on page number 37 of your notes. And with h, we're now looking where we have two negative signs, a negative and a negative. And we'll get started here. So same idea applies. Again, we should be used to the system. Find my factor pairs of my first term and my last term. Factor pairs of x squared, or x times x gives me x squared. And factor pairs of 21 are 1 times 21, or 3 times 7. There are my options there. I have marks already. Step number 2, I look at the sign in front of that constant down the end. It's a minus. Now, what does a minus mean to me? A minus means that when I open my brackets, there is going to be different signs. Always write it down, just get it into your head. So let's open our brackets. We open our brackets, and what we can do is place a very wide bracket there. We place a plus in one and a minus in the other. Again, you can place them in after, that's entirely up to you. So here I've only one option for my first term in each bracket, it's x and x. And for my second term in each of the brackets, I have a choice between 1 and 21 or 3 and 7. Now remember, I want to get to minus 4, so I'm looking at 3 and 7 and saying, well, they seem to be the ones that would suit a little bit better. I'm going to say if I had minus 7 plus 3 would give me minus 4. So let's give that a go. Plus 3 is going to come over as far as here. Minus 7 as far as here. Now, we know that's correct. However, we want to walk out with full confidence, so we're going to check that answer. We're going to find the term at the center. We're going to say 3 times x is going to give me 3x. We're going to say x times minus 7 is minus 7x. 3 minus 7 is going to leave me with minus 4x. That there is the second term. So we're confident we're right. Now the very last question we're going to look at is J. And J is across the page on page number 38. And here the difference with this question and other questions is that there is a coefficient or a number in front of that x squared. So again, you're seeing that there's a digit in front of, or coefficient I should say rather than digit, in front of that x squared. Now the same techniques apply here, but sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult with that number there. So let's get started. And this really, just so you know, when we get as far as here, this is really where the checking comes into play and why we always check. It's actually for when we have a number here. So to start off, same technique applies here. Step number 1, find your factor pairs. My factor pairs are my first term and my factor pairs are my last term. So here we have 1x times 3x will give me 3x squared. No other options there. 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Only one option there. Step number 2. Think about our signs. We look at the sign sitting in front of the coefficient down the end, that number down the end. It's a minus. That means when I open my brackets, I'm going to have different signs. So let's open our brackets. Now, usually with a question like this, where you have, I'm going to say coefficients here, numbers sitting in front are multiplied onto that x squared, usually there's a little bit of trial and error in this that you might end up getting, having to move things around, move signs, that's fine. The only thing I'm going to say to you is please, in an exam situation, do not then go rub out the wrong answer after you've checked. Bracket round it or a very light line through it, because that will be worth marks even just because you maybe have the 1 and 2 there, that you're using the correct factors, okay? So it's really important to show all your workings even if it's incorrect. Here, my different signs, I'll place a plus in one and I'll place a minus in the other. Now, we have to remember that whatever term is here times here are multiplied by each other and here times here to get that center number. So let's have a little think for ourselves. So let's think 3 times 2 would give me 4. Kind of seems like it's getting very far away from that minus 1x. So why don't we say here, okay, and I'm going to say here, I'm going to place the 3x. And I'm going to say 3x times the 1. I'm thinking because 3x times minus 1 will give me minus 3. And now I'm going to place my 1x here, or just x, okay? So I'm going to put the 3x there, 1x there, and I'm going to place the 2 here. So my 2 and 1. Now, I'm obviously doing these calculations as I move along because what I have is this checker in my head. We're trying to get to that minus 1x, so we're going to say to ourselves here, let's check. And actually the check is nearly how you solve the question usually here for a lot of students. So we have 2 times 1 is going to get 1x is going to give me 2x. And then I have this 3 times minus 1 is going to give me minus 3x. 2 minus 3 is going to leave me with minus 1x. And that there is the term at the center, which actually tells me that I'm correct. Now guys, that is our last type of factorization. Lots of questions there for you to try, one of each actually. So factorization is now complete.